Hey folks, it's Billy D.K.Y., the truth seeker who simplifies and demystifies. This is going to be my preliminary new MMA scoring system. And basically, I need your help to look through it, see what you think, listen to it, see if you have any suggestions, and then after we go through this preliminary phase, I'll do a final one, and then I'll start pushing it out, and we'll try to get the masses to understand what we're talking about and come watch the video. Maybe eventually we get enough people who agree with what we're saying that we can get this system changed and get some better fights going on. So, but before we get started, I need to thank a few people for helping me, think through it a little bit. Football Fan 533 and Nib 967. So they helped out in thinking through this too. Okay. First thing we got to do, you want to forget the 10-point must system because that was based on boxing. That was based on a 10 to 12 round boxing match, which, okay, that's fine. 1 point here or there don't make a big difference. That can add up over that many rounds. But in MMA, we only have 3 to 5 rounds, so we need a different kind of scoring system. You need more than 1 point variation on most fights, and so basically what we've got right now is we have clever fighters who have found holes in the current scoring system, which allows them to win fights without really fighting. And MMA is the sport of fighting. And Football Fan 533 points out that this is the sport of fighting, and basically you want to score. If you've seen a street fight, how would you judge it? So it's basically the same thing. We want to reward fighters and winners, not people who stall the fight out. And Nib 967 pointed out that Pride had a lot of good rules. It sounded like to encourage fighting and not encourage, to discourage stalling. So, and basically I boiled it down to this. MMA should be based solely on how close a fighter comes to stopping a fight. Because if it goes to judges, it obviously went to decision. So we should reward the person who came closest to stopping the fight. And so basically here's the way it would start out. Both fighters would start out with 0 points. And we would be much more generous in our point scoring than we would in boxing, just 1 point, and basically 9-10, 9-8 at the most, typically in just crazy 9-7 round. We'd be much more generous in our scorings, but we would start out at 0, and we wouldn't add 10 and then start subtracting. We would start from 0 and add points. Anytime a fighter did something that come close, that did something towards ending the fight. And the reason I don't say damage per se, which damage is obviously part of it, is because somebody may be doing a submission which doesn't cause that much damage, but once it's sunk in, it's over. So it's really about ending the fight. So you would be given points for your attempts at ending the fight, and points would be subtracted away when you did something that lengthened the fight, that made the fight go to the decision. So if you're one of those fighters trying to eke out a decision, points be taken away. If, like, let's say the first 2 rounds you get a bunch of points, but the third round you realize you're ahead on points and you start running, that's take away points from that person. Take away 5 or 6 points for running, not engaging. And so basically the maximum points in any round would be 10 points, and the minimum amount of points you could earn in a round would be minus 10. So you'd have a fluctuation of 20 points, and so let's just take an average round. One guy does a little bit better than the other, you give him a point. And maybe you can even use fractions of points if you wanted to, maybe halves or quarters, but not really any less than that. That far of a breakdown in the point scoring. But let's just take the first BJ Penn George St. Pierre fight, for example. Basically, BJ Penn was putting a beating on George's face with his hands, but he wasn't really doing anything that was making it close to stopping, but he was inflicting a lot of damage, and he was trying to stop the fight. So I would give him, in that round, I would give him 3 points for all the face damage he did to George. And then the second round, George basically gets on top of him, does nothing to stop the fight, but just keeps from getting any more damage. BJ was not able to do anything, so I'd give BJ 0 points for round 2. But George was stalling the fight by lengthening it, not engaging, not really trying to stop it, so I probably took 3 points away from him. Second round was basically the same thing. So that fight to me would be BJ Penn won 3 points in the first round, and George St. Pierre lost 6 points in the second and third round. So it would be BJ 3 points, St. Pierre -6. And again, George St. Pierre's your favorite fighter. This ain't about GSP or BJ Penn. It's trying to illustrate the point that points can be taken away, points can be added. So the way I see it, if you come close to stopping a guy in a round, that's probably 4 to 5 points at the most. 5 points, 4 to 6 points, somewhere in that area. If you come close to stopping a guy twice in a round, that would maybe be, close to a 10-point round for you. So, and also, we've also seen rounds where somebody, he sinks into submission with he's on the ground, they're fighting around, he finally sinks it in 5 seconds before the bell, and he had it. I mean, he was just 5 seconds away from stopping that round. That's probably, you give the dude 6 points in that round. But if you got somebody that, and wrestling is basically, like I said, clever fighters have found that they can just wrestle and eke out a decision, and that's really not rewarding fighting. We don't want to see long, boring, out decision fights, so the ones that cause controversy, because, we want to see good fights. So taking somebody down could be a positive or negative in my scoring system, because it really depends on how close you come to stopping the fight because of that takedown. So if you're taking the person down and doing some amazing ground and pound, hey, you're adding points. And I think also we're not really giving enough credit for strikers. It seems like you come out there and be a great striker, and then this guy takes you down, and all of a sudden the takedown all of a sudden nullifies all the great headshots that you gave the guy and the liver shots. And, let's reward people who end fights, and let's discourage people who lengthen fights. Because, that's really what we're about in MMA. It's about ending a fight. It ain't just warring for the sake of war. So again, basically, I'd like you to just think about it. Any comments you have, and then after I, get some of your comments and feedback, I'll probably, like I said, I'll do another video, and we'll do a final cut, and I'll start pushing it out. I may push this one out in the meantime, talking about it on the other videos to get people to start, educate them on what I think should be done. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is referees. I would like to see our referees and judges also to be evaluated. If they're involved in too many controversial decisions, then, they need to be removed or reprimanded at a minimum, and, lose their fighting, whatever it is, their ability to referee and judging, because, we want the best judges and the best referees, just like the NFL. You want the best, umps and all that kind of stuff. So, our officials. So anyway, also if you want to hear Football Fan 533's defensive game plans in MMA, he sort of talks about this similar stuff. It was sort of the lead into this, and I'll put a bubble up. You can go look at it. And like I said, I'd like to get your feedback and see what you think should be changed. And again, I want to avoid the 10-point must system altogether. We don't want to bring stuff over from boxing. This is a new system. It's a whole different ball game. We only got 3 rounds typically. We want to have a much greater diversity, because boxing is very one-dimensional. It's just hands. Where this is a hands, kicks, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or whatever else you want to throw in there, just crazy stuff. So we want to judge this differently. We want to have more variation in our scoring because we got fewer rounds. And we don't want to add 10 points and subtract. We want to start from 0 and make it real simple, add and subtract, based on how close you are to ending that fight. And because here's another thing. Let's say the first round, a guy he blows his wad trying to stop a guy. He gives it everything, his best, and he comes real close. Give him 5 points, let's say. Then the next 2 rounds, nothing really happens. It's sort of meek. The other guy wins a little bit, maybe a point each round. Well, the guy that won the first round still wins because he really put more out to try to end the fight. So he got 5 points in the first round. The next 2 rounds, the other guy gets the point, so it's 5-2. The guy that had the amazing first round wins the fight because he did more to stop the fight. Anyway, folks, like I said, I'd like to get your opinion, and if you wouldn't mind, please rate the video. Later, folks.